What we're doing today is looking at a cosmic milestone that has been building since 2020 and understanding why, right now in this exact window, something has shifted in a way that is permanent. If you've been feeling it, the restlessness, the urgency, the sense that the old life no longer fits, you're not imagining it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. To really understand the significance of where we're at right now, we have to look at where we've been. Since around 2025, many of us have started to feel something building beneath the surface, a bone-deep knowing that something enormous was on its way. But it was like trying to see through the fog. You knew that something was there, but you couldn't make it out. You could feel the weight of it, but you couldn't see its shape. And that's not a coincidence. That's Saturn in Pisces. For those of you who know your astrology, Pisces is the mists of Avalon. It is the veil between this world and the astral world. It is both beautiful and equally disorienting. And having Saturn, the planet of structure, of time, of reality testing, traveling through that sign that is more ethereal, meant that many of us were walking through a particularly challenging kind of uncertainty. We felt disillusioned. We experienced the slow erosion of faith, the erosion of faith in systems, in narratives we once trusted, in dreams we once held close. Saturn in Pisces was asking us to release the scaffolding, and for a lot of us, that felt like a free fall. But here's the thing about fog. It doesn't last forever, and it almost always precedes a clearing. That clearing arrived on February 20th, 2026. On that date, Saturn and Neptune met in exact conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries. Now, Saturn and Neptune conjunct about every 36 years, so that in and of itself is not what is significant. But this conjunction, this one is different because 0 degrees Aries isn't just the beginning of a sign, it's the reset point of the entire zodiac. It is known as the cosmic zero, the cosmic egg. If the zodiac were a clock, February 20th was the stroke of midnight on the cosmic New Year's Eve. And the cycle that ended wasn't a yearly cycle. It was a cycle that spans the entirety of recorded history. This literally hasn't happened at 0 degrees in Aries in recorded history. We are indeed in unprecedented times. Saturn meets Neptune. Structure meets dream. Discipline meets vision. Reality meets imagination. These are very two different energies, and they are meeting in Aries, the sign of fire, courage, and initiation. This is not a gentle blending. This is a forge being lit. Now, I want to be very clear about something. The effects of this conjunction are permanent. This is not a transit that passes and leaves things as they were. We have crossed a threshold. There's no going back to the world as it was before. However, and this is equally important, the transition phase, the integration of this new era, will continue until approximately April of 2028. So we are in the early stages of a new cycle. We are still in what I would call the birth canal. And I want to name something that many of us have been experiencing right now. This conjunction can stir doubt. It can bring disillusionment to the surface around our hopes and our dreams. It can bring doubts to our plans, to our relationships, and create analysis paralysis. When Saturn applies its reality filter to Neptune's visions, it asks the hard questions. Is this truly possible? Is this truly yours? This can feel like a loss. And if you'd like more information on the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, you can check it out at the end of this video. The link will be in the description. Now, here's where I really want you to pay attention because this part is the part that changes the quality of what many of us are feeling right now. And I want to tell you about it because it is extraordinary. You see, there was a man named André Barbault. He was a French astrologer, one of the most respected mundane astrologers of the 20th century. Someone who studied planetary cycles and their relationship to world events. He authored over 50 books, he pioneered the use of computerized horoscopes, and he accurately predicted two things that I think are worth considering. One was the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the other was a major global sickness. You know the one I'm talking about, the one that shall not be named on YouTube, around 2020 and 2021. So, when André Barbault identifies something as the most beautiful alignment of the 21st century, it's worth our attention. He called it Barbault's basket, and it's forming right now and peaking in July of 2026. So here's what it is. It is four of the outer planets, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, that are forming a rare cradle shape in the zodiac. It's made of three sextiles, two trines, and one opposition. It's like a cosmic container, a basket held together by supportive and transformational energy all at once. When the outer planets move into an alignment like this, they are moving slowly, and that means their energy emanates deeply and powerfully, sending large ripples across the collective consciousness. Barbault associated this configuration with a major positive restructuring of the world, a shift towards greater equity, towards rebuilding after the crises of the early 2020s. And the degree at which many of these planets are clustered is 4 degrees. In astrology, the fourth degree is associated with foundations, with building something new from the rubble of what came before. Think of it as the architects of a new age sitting down and deciding what to build. So here's where it gets personal. The basket is created with three sextiles, two trines, and one opposition. And these are key conversations happening between the heavy hitters that are important to understand in order to leverage this energy. The first conversation is Neptune, that is in a sextile with both Pluto and Uranus, which has been active since late April. This is one of the most quietly significant alignments we have right now. It is supporting us in dreaming a new dream, but not based on the old dream, not the one that we were handed down and told what to want. This alignment is illuminating a path where we don't have to choose between our own sovereignty and belonging to a community. Let's just talk real here, because many of us have been told explicitly or implicitly that wanting things for ourselves, choosing our own gifts and passions over the collective demands, is selfish. We have mythologized self-sacrifice for the greater good for generations. And as a result, a lot of us have been carrying a quiet kind of grief around the things we have set down in the name of being for the common good. Pluto is pulling back the curtain on how that narrative has been used. The truth of the revelation can land with some weight, but it will ultimately set us free. For some of us, this might also translate as a questioning on how much sovereignty we've given up for survival. Again, here we see the sobering effects of Pluto and Uranus questioning Neptune's social myths that many of us have lived by, often without question. For example, is the safe job or career really all that secure? Does growing up really mean we have to put aside our passions and sense of purpose? Is it really all that responsible to wait until you retire to thrive? Has the concept of retirement in general become more of a myth than a reality? For the past 7 years, while Uranus was in Taurus, our foundations have been uprooted. Now that it is in Gemini, which is a sign that has a gift for seeing various perspectives, our minds might be a bit more open to consider a new reality. And as this conversation with Neptune is weighing the pros and cons of the stories we live by, it may become more and more evident that the only way to is through. The second conversation is Jupiter entering Leo and moving into sextile with Uranus at the end of June. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. In Leo, it makes us want to be seen. It stirs the creative fire, the courage to bet on yourself, and the impulse to move towards bold, original expression. And that sextile with Uranus and Gemini is like lightning meeting inspiration, aha moments around who you are and what you're actually here to do. The trine between Uranus and Pluto and Neptune and Jupiter are especially supportive of this cosmic shift and offer us the opportunity to face what we don't want to see, which is being brought up by the opposition between Jupiter and Pluto. Oppositions are like two magnets that oppose each other. They don't want a conversation. It is creating the tension that creates the basket. This tension is the confrontation between the individual and the collective, between your right to be fully, boldly yourself and the systems and structures that have always asked you to make yourself smaller. Expect this tension to become very visible in the world around late 2026. There's going to be a lot of noise, fear-mongering, people who benefit from the old structure pushing back hard, both on personal and a global level. But Pluto, the king of the underworld and the revealer of what is hidden, is pulling the puppet strings into the light. And what is revealed, even when it is uncomfortable, cannot be unseen. We may not like what we see, but the truth will set us free. We've been prepared for this. This roller coaster ride we've been on since 2020 has been one wave after another, one type of celestial alignment after another that in different ways has been asking us the same question: where is your sovereignty? It's important to remember that astrology describes the energetic weather that we are in. It does not determine our fate. We decide how we respond to the algorithm. So, as this basket formation is slowly taking shape this summer, I ask you, and I genuinely want you to sit with this: what do you want in your basket? And equally, what does this alignment need you to clean out, to refine, to release in order to make room for something new? Every challenge since 2020, every forge, every fire was the celestial curriculum. In this basket, this is the exam where everything you've been learning comes in to use. And if this is landing for you, if you've been feeling this shift in your own life, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you're new here, welcome home. And now let's talk about the elemental landscape of this, because this is deeply significant and may help you realize your vision. Both Gemini and Aquarius are air signs, and air rules the intellect. It rules our perspectives, our communication, the way we process information and meaning. Uranus, the planet of aha moments, of radical shifts, of lightning bolt realizations, is in Gemini, and it is sextiling the Aries fire of Neptune. And Saturn's nearby, lending a bit of structural influence. This creates this energy that is simultaneously building foundations and expanding possibilities. And then there's Pluto. Pluto's in Aquarius, which is Uranus's home. So just think about that for a minute. Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth, of deep transformation, is sitting in the house that Uranus built. It's as if Pluto is the midwife of this entire new chapter. In many ways, Pluto is. Pluto is ushering in this new era through revolution, through innovation, through complete redefinition of what community means, who our people are, and what it means to belong. So let's give an analogy for what this actually feels like from the inside, because up until this point, we've been talking about this alignment from a bird's eye view. So let's zoom in. The energy of this configuration, the sextile, the air, the fire, this sense of perspective being permanently shifted, carries the unmistakable fingerprint of the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man in the tarot is suspended. He is seeing the world from a completely different angle. And notice, the world has not been destroyed. He hasn't fallen. He is simply seeing it differently than he ever has before. Many of us have been in a hanged man situation type of energy since 2020, seeing things we cannot unsee, knowing things we cannot unknow, hanging in that liminal space where the old story doesn't fit anymore, but the new one hasn't yet fully formed. And then the card that follows the hangman in the tarot is the death card. And I want to speak to this clearly. It is about the kind of ending that makes a new beginning possible. It is the completion of something that was real, was meaningful, and now it has run its full course. It is, and I mean this very sincerely, one of the most important and sacred cards in the entire deck, because without it, nothing new begins. These two cards, the hangman and the death card, they make way for the Temperance card. The Temperance card is the alchemist card. The Temperance stands at the threshold between two worlds. Temperance pours water between two cups, bringing together light and dark, death and life, old and new. Temperance does not choose one over the other. Temperance works with both. They blend these two seemingly opposing forces into something that's never existed before. And that is alchemy. That is the invitation of this cosmic configuration to become a spiritual alchemist, to take what has been dismantled, what has ended, what has been held as grief and loss and disillusionment, and to bring it together with the new vision, the new courage, the new foundation, to create something entirely original and new from you. In metallurgy, when you refine gold, it is not purified in a single pass. You cannot rush it. If you apply too much heat too quickly, you weaken the metal rather than strengthen it. The gold is fired and cooled and then fired again over and over. Each pass through the fire removes more of what is not gold until what is remaining is purer and stronger than what you started with. Many of us began this forging process as far back as 2020. The challenges were not random. The losses were not punishment. You did not necessarily do anything wrong. You're not missing the boat, and your spidey senses aren't broken. The process may seem unjust, and in fact, it might be depending on your circumstances. But a lack of justice doesn't necessarily mean there's a lack of opportunity. The fire is lit. We can choose to be forged into a more holistic version of ourselves or be consumed by the fire. And here's what makes this particular moment so powerful. Pluto, who is overseeing all of this transformation from Aquarius, is the king of the underworld, and the underworld is not just a realm of endings and shadows. It is also the realm of hidden treasure, fine metals, the deep veins of gold that can only be reached by going down. You are both the smith holding the hammer and the gold being refined, and that is not a contradiction. That is alchemy. Since May 6, Pluto began its yearly 6-month retrograde, and when Pluto goes retrograde, it turns that transformational energy inward. We become more introspective. We find ourselves revisiting our personal relationships, our personal power, but also our power dynamics within the structures that we exist in, our relationships, our communities, our jobs. And this is not something to resist. Pluto's retrograde is actually a very natural companion to this entire configuration. The king of the underworld goes inward and he asks us to follow, not to get lost, but to excavate, to ask, where have I been giving my power away? And where is there gold I haven't yet claimed? So now let's talk about how all of this is likely landing in your body and your lived experience. With Uranus in Gemini, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and Pluto in Aquarius, we have collectively shifted from an earth and water era into a fire and air era. That is a profound elemental transition that affects us all, but it will affect us all in very different ways. If you have a lot of air and fire in your natal chart, Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, or Aquarius, this shift may feel like you finally got a breath of fresh air, like you finally found your fire again. The stagnation that has been sitting on your chest is finally beginning to clear, and things are starting to move again. You have been waiting for this. For those of you who have a lot of water or earth in your chart, Cancer, Taurus, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, or Pisces, this energy might feel a little too fast, a little too electric, maybe even overwhelming. And that's okay. The forge works for all of us. Be gentle with yourself as you find your ground within it. Slow and steady wins the race, even in a fire and air era. So as we stand here inside this milestone, inside this forge, the question isn't whether you are going to change. You most certainly will. You most certainly are. We all are. That was decided on February 20th with the Neptune-Saturn conjunction. The question that the hangman is asking, and that temperance is whispering, is simply this: who or what will you forge yourself into next? If you've ever wondered how astrology works, why the planets can change our energetic weather, check out the next video on how your birth chart is your own personal algorithm in this matrix. Be well, my friends. If this video has resonated with you, please click the like button and subscribe. It helps this channel more than you know. Thank you all for joining me here. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.